But 20 years in the Legion will make a boy man. 20 years in the Legion and they will give you land. 20 years in the Legion, you'll always have a home. 20 years in the legions of Rome.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of How Shit Works. I'm Mistress Adriana, Laurel with Opinions, filling in for Graf Ulrich, who is on board duty today. I would be joined by our co-host of the show, Erik Martell, Baron of Iron Mountain, and the Knight of Kittens. However, his computer is updating, so hopefully he'll show up when that finishes. Until then, we're just going to move on with the show. So today's special episode goes behind the scenes of several of your favorite SCA pandemic shows to discuss how it works. Today's special guests, let me find them, are Duchess Dagmaer from Grace Under Pressure, Sir Rauokinn, Mistress Achaxe of the Sisters Interview, and Lord Kál-Bárðr of Cal's Corner. Please introduce yourself and give everybody a little bit of an overview of you and your shows.
Hi, I'm Duchess Dagmaer, Montier. Three of us are from Montier, actually. And I am first in the order for all of the interview questions, which is a little embarrassing because I'm actually riding on the coattails of Rauokinn and Achaxe. My series is part of the Sisters Interview Network.
We can move you around.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Because that means I can brag about them first before they say anything humble about their own shows. So I've been friends with these wonderful people for a really long time, and what they've done for Montier is extraordinary during the pandemic in running these interviews for people throughout the known world, and it's been a wonderful chance for Ontierans to get to know people from around the known world. It's very cool. And I started Grace Under Pressure as part of their interview network. So anyway, I've been in the SCA for about 30 years, and which is extraordinary to me because I'm clearly not a day over 30. And I just I think that's all you need to know about me. I am going to be starting a new series soon. That's an advice series that's here in Montier, mostly for Ontierans. But if anybody's interested in that, you can contact me after the show. So awesome. That's me.
Hi, I'm Rauokinn. I'm also from Montier. I am Achaxe's sister. I've been playing the SCA for, 25 years. Also not a day over 30. I like to fight. I like to do art. My shows, I do the Sisters Interview with my sister. That was our first show. And then I've also done Murder of Dukes. And also I'm doing a new show called Leveling Up, which is super fun.
Great.
You're on mute.
Hi, sorry about that. I'm Achaxe. I have been in the SCA for 25 years. I've been a Laurel for 16 years. I am several days over 30. And I am the older sister. I do the Sisters Interview with Rauokinn, and then I have been doing a branch of Laurels, which is slated to end at the end of June. And then I do the kind of behind the scenes and sub co-host for Grace Under Pressure. Cal?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this live stream. I'm Lord Kál-Bárðr, Companion of the Meridian Cross, Companion of the Argent Comet, Companion of the Argent Lamp, Companion of the Falcon's Faith, and Reaper, coming to you live, as always, from the Barony of the Osprey on the southern coast of Meridians. I couldn't do a live show without doing my actual introduction. So I run 14 different shows on 9 different channels currently. I stay busy. So I have a 3 or 4 on my channel personally, and then I sort of run tech and producer for a couple others that we'll talk about later in this show. I am, in fact, exactly 3 years and a week over 30. And I've been in the SCA for 4 and change, I guess. So excited to be here among some giants of the SCA.
I'm Adriana. Hey, Eric's with us. Welcome back.
Sorry about the dramatic entrance.
Oh, yeah. Well, you just you wanted me to be able to butcher everyone's name instead of you this time. And you got me.
I'm going to admit that's the silver lining to the dark cloud.
Exactly. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about the shows?
Well, hi, I'm Sir Erik Martell. I am a landed baron. I am the Knight of Kittens, and it has been my honor to co-host Hound and Stag with Graf Ulrich since the very beginning. Mostly this show is how things work in the Kingdom of Meridies, but as a bonus feature for Iris Faire, we really wanted to get a look at how other people are doing things, particularly the people who sort of were the first ones into the brave new world of the online SCA as the pandemic sort of rolled in, and we couldn't have better guests to represent that. So I'd really like to thank you all for coming.
Absolutely. I'm Adriana. I'm usually the script writer for How It Works. However, because Graf Ulrich isn't here today, I'm stepping in to co-host with Sir Erik. Erik, do you want to take, welcome to the show, everybody, and thank you for being here. Before we get started on our first question, I just want to tell our audience that they can ask questions at any time in the comments, and we'll save those for the end of our scripted questions, and then ask them of our guests at the end of the show.
So why don't we go ahead and get started with our line of questioning? And the first question we'd like to get into would be how you got started and what prompted you to start your show. And really, had you done this sort of thing before? As in, did you have a mundane background in this sort of thing? Or did you, in my case, were sort of thrown into the deep end and Ulrich kept me from drowning?
So I guess I'll start. So hi, I'm Duchess Dagmaer. Welcome, Erik. So I started this show because I wanted to provide a voice, I guess, to people who had reigned as consorts in the SCA, but to give a voice specifically to people who were using their privilege and rank to make the SCA more accessible, and who are, addressing inequalities, or who generally are just being aware of how they impact the SCA around them. So that's been the filter through which we've selected guests. I'm really, really fortunate to be close friends with Rauokinn and Achaxe, and have been able to really just, as I said, ride on their coattails and be able to take advantage of the reach that they had already achieved through the Sisters Interview Network. But also, I have a co-host, Sir Joel, who's currently living in the Outlands. He also had the same idea coming from a different direction and had also approached the sisters. And so we just sort of intersected through that connection, which is, I think, pretty special. So he had an interest just as a knight in the SCA in doing the exact same thing. So that's a very cool sort of symmetry that occurred as well. So I think that's enough from me, because you'll hear from the sisters about how they started their series, and that'll help.
Achaxe, do you want to go first?
Okay. So our show sort of started in response to between two peers. Tulia and Helga had their first show that first Friday night, and Rivkin and I texted each other and we're like, hey, we could do this. It would be really cool to highlight some of the lions of Ontir and give people a chance to get to know the people that had shaped our kingdom. And so that was sort of the premise of the Sisters Interview Network. And then, Rivkin, do you want to talk about the next part?
Sure. I'm getting a really bad echo. At the time, there was some sort of fighting shows like The Five Things, and I don't know if Ask the Knights was around yet, but I had this goal for myself to fight 50 Dukes, and that obviously wasn't going to happen with COVID. And one of my friends from Aidenfeld said, hey, why don't you interview 50 Dukes instead? And so I was like, well, there's a lot of fighting stuff. I don't know, like, there's really a niche? But I decided to do it. And I, thinking that COVID was going to be over in a few months, just went out of the gate and started doing 4 or 5 a week because I wanted to get them all done before the end of August. And lo and behold, COVID kept going and going. And so I ended up with 103 Dukes, my sister counted. So I'm taking a little break from that. Every once in a while I'll go back to one, but it definitely is not at the pace from before. And then leveling up was something I wanted to do initially through the chivalry of Ontir. I wanted us to lead by example and to sort of take a leadership role during this time when we can't be fighting, and to show people how they could use this time to up their kit. So it's not completely fighting related, but a lot of it is fighting related: how to build a sword, how to cover your shoes. I'm going to teach how to make a cool SCA hoodie. Lots of little things to just make your kit better. So, and I didn't do any of this before. We sort of threw ourselves into the pool and figured it out as we went, and we're still very, very low tech.
Yeah, I didn't even know how to use Zoom when this started. We've streamed our first 3 shows live on Sir Rivkin's personal Facebook. And then we decided, oh, well, maybe we should do a Facebook for the interview thing. And so we did that. A lot of tech issues going up front. We just used Zoom through Facebook. I sat through one of Kal's how-to things about, is it StreamYard? And yeah, it's just, it was overwhelming for me. So we're just keeping it really simple. And then I started the Branch of Laurels kind of in response to my sister's Murder of Dukes series, just to kind of, again, let people know who the Laurels were and what it looks like to have, what different Laurel paths look like, and to see how diverse the interests of Laurels are. And we've been really lucky. We've had Sir Ferris and Mineko and a bunch of different people, and Rivkin even more people. She would interview a Duke and they would give her like 5 more names. And so we've been really lucky to have so many people contribute to our networking. We would never have been able to do this without people suggesting interviews. It's most of our interviewees are people that have been suggested to us or people that approach us. So that's been really cool. And that's me.
So Kál-Bárdr's Corner started, it was basically the what happens when an extrovert and a project manager lose both their hobby and their job in the same month. So COVID happened, and then I lost my job like a month later, and I was bored at my house and losing my friggin' mind. I started with an event. I was supposed to autograph an event last April. I did that via a Facebook group and was like, oh, this is great. We could do this. And I was like, I could do this regularly. Started with one show and have built it from there. It's something I've never done before. I mean, I'm a tech guy. I'm an IT project manager. So like, I understand how all this works from the backside, but I'd never done YouTube and never done any of that. And I'm still not great at the YouTube part. I actually talked to His Highness of the Summits yesterday. He's like, hey, I run a YouTube channel. Let me help you fix some of your YouTube stuff. So even now after a year, it's still improving. So yeah, it's started at one show, and now it's a tiny empire. It's kind of terrifying.
Very cool. Thank you so much.
The next question was answered a little bit during that discussion, but it's how do you choose your topics and your guests? Oh,
unmute. We're having a little feedback, so we've been muting ourselves just so that anybody listening isn't confused why we're playing ventriloquist. We just choose royal consorts, but mostly it's people that we know and the people, friends of friends, that sort of thing. But one thing we've been really trying to do is to hit all the kingdoms and make sure that we have somebody represented, since we only do it weekly and there's a lot of former royal consorts out there. That's, it's an embarrassment of riches, I guess. But also just finding people who have an interest in speaking, specifically to privilege is also important to us. The other thing is we've tried to represent what little diversity there is among royal consorts. It's a very white group, very female. That can be a little challenging too, but there is some diversity represented among former royal consorts. And so obviously, if anybody has some suggestions of people whose perspective isn't commonly represented, we'd love to hear from them. That's my little pitch to everybody out there. But otherwise, some people just don't want to be interviewed. Even though they have a tremendous legacy in the SCA and have done public speaking and have been in front of, thousands of people sometimes, this intimate of a setting that's also being broadcast to people they don't know, it can be difficult. And so some people have just flat out said no as a result. And other people don't want to do it because they don't want to participate in the SCA electronically, which I do really have compassion for. However, we consider these legacy building, that we're able to capture stories. So it's really important from an historic standpoint for the SCA. And so we are really hoping that people will continue to, as they watch these and see how, I guess, low pressure it really is and how conversational and friendly they are, that they'll feel like they want to participate.
Yeah, so we, my sister and I started with the Lions of Vontier, which is people have like the Lions of Atenville, the same thing, Griffins of Artemisia. It's sort of the people that the royalty of Vontier have acknowledged as being pillars of the kingdom or shaping the kingdom in some way. So we wanted to start there because a lot of those people, we have a very, very large kingdom and it's hard to get to know anybody. We like our crown tourneys are sometimes 2,000 through the gate. So we have super large events. And some of these lions that we interviewed, I live like within probably 30 miles and I've almost never talked to. And it's just been super cool to get to know them. But Achaxe's right. Like if we didn't have people helping us, like Duke Sean introduced me to everybody and their mother. Duke Allanon, after I interviewed him, gave me a whole bunch of Dukes from Meridiers. That was super cool. Some of them flaked, but most of them didn't.
I want to say, usually I'm the one interviewing their mothers. Quite a few of these guys and women are kids of former reigning pairs, which is kind of extraordinary when we have these multi-generational families that are hitting, these different series anyway.
Yeah. And I have to give a big shout out to the Outlands too, because they once I got started, man, they were so supportive, and like I think I hit almost everybody I asked from out there. And then the leveling up is really just about topics. I'm just really interested on how to make your kit look better. So we're going to do like a shield painting topic, a block printing topic, applique, metal applique, Just a whole bunch of little things you can do and use this time. And now that we know, at least in Ontario, that we probably have at least the rest of the summer not doing events, we still have a lot of time. So I'll let Achaxe go.
I don't have a whole lot to add. Yeah, I don't have anything to add. Oh, well, except that this has been also for the three of us and Joel, I guess I should say the four of us. It's been a great opportunity for us personally to stay connected. My sister and I spend a lot of time Zooming outside of meetings to brainstorm who we're going to do next and divide up the months, and same with Dagmaer. And so it's been really nice to keep our friendships going as well. That's been an added benefit.
Plus, Rithkin's husband sometimes runs D&D for my kid, and that's really important. And it's during the pandemic, it being his first DM was like amazing. So I want to give a shout out to Vilius for being an extraordinary human and supporting all of this, and Octomasades, who is Achaxe's husband. We all have kids, we all have dogs, we all have everything. And without them keeping things at bay, I think it would be really challenging. Just like anything else we do in the SCA, it takes partnership. So.
As far as topics, so one of my goals when I started, I started with What You Playing Wednesday, which is strictly game based. So it was literally topic based. I picked a game, found somebody to play it with me, and did that. As I started growing into like Coffee with Cal, that literally started to turn into that was shower thoughts. It was the what do you chew on in the shower after an event, or what do you think on when you're going home? And it was I'd ask the question of myself and started writing them down, and then went, that's a good question. Let me find somebody. And I thought of the first person I thought of when I thought of that question. So for instance, next Sunday, I've got Graf Ulrich on to talk about imposter syndrome. And it was really funny when I asked him to be on. He's like, oh, no, I'm not the best person to talk about that. I think you can probably find a better guest. And then a day later, he's like, I literally just walked into that one, didn't I? I was like, pretty much Ulrich, yeah. So that was one of my goals, was really because there were so many interview shows that were guest specific, I wanted to be topic specific. I want everything I did to be topic based. And I mean, I guess to be different, but also it was a thing because there were so many things that were not being talked about, and the interviews were, whereas they're important, they were sort of all in the same realm of questions. So I think having the topics has been really fun. Now, as far as when we started doing What Makes a Night with Duke Sean, who, definitely shout out to Sean for bringing in some amazing guests for that. He led that effort, but I'm sort of just holding on for the reins of his coattails on that one. But that's been a ton of fun, being sort of the unbelt in the room with some amazing nights. And literally, I've got to sit with his entire lineage just about now. His grand night will be on in 2 weeks, and then his night, and at least one of his squires that's been knighted. So it's been really nice being the sort of the low man on that totem pole and just getting to hear a lot of those conversations. And then, so looking at some of the other channels that I help with, a lot of them run differently. So like Logan for Ask the Knights, he pulls in stuff literally to whoever he can find. We grab pairs of knights that are good together. I've pulled in some, Sean's pulled in some, Logan's pulled in some, Sir Helga's pulled in some. It's just been whoever we can find that's willing to jump on camera. And it's led to some really interesting conversations, both on camera and behind the scenes. So yeah.
Much. So we know a lot goes into making these shows, finding guests and deciding on the topics, developing questions, running the show, publicity, and a bunch of other things before the finished product goes out. Approximately how much time do you put into your show?
That's such a great question, because I know that a lot of the work that I put into it benefits directly from what Achaxe and Rithkin do. But I can say that probably the biggest time sink for me is talking somebody through why we want to interview them. Excuse me. And so kind of getting them on board in that respect. Once they've agreed to do it, it's, probably maybe about an hour worth of work for me. I put together a slideshow. We customize the questions that can, using their OP listing, and so we can be a little more specific to their personal achievements. And the promotion, we just use the network, and I do Achaxe posts to all of the different kingdom lists, and we have consort lists that we post to. I mean, things like that. But so I would say for each weekly interview, I probably put in a solid hour, maybe 2 hours of time, and then the interviews themselves typically run over. We started at about 45 minutes to an hour, and they're running 2 hours consistently, which is in large because we goof around a lot during the interview. We are not very serious. We approach serious topics with not serious rappers, I guess. And like this whole presentation right now is so much more staid than normally the tone of our interviews. There are some swears, as my son would say. There's a lot of irreverence, but we also use that as a way of making it easier for people to hear hard things. And so it works really well. But I would say then that's probably 3 hours a week, maybe 3 to 4 hours a week. That it depends on the guest too, and how many pictures they send me. Some people send me like 40 pictures, and I have to like, that's a lot of work. So.
Okay, so when I was doing all the Murder of Duke shows too, there was a lot more work. I still work. I didn't lose my job. I still do a 40+ hour a week job. I'm a lawyer. So it was a lot. But now that I'm really only doing 2 shows a week, there's probably 4 or 5 hours, depending on how much production I have to do for Leveling Up, because that sometimes involves video, or if I'm doing the slideshow. Achaxe and I sort of go back and forth on who's prepping for the guest. Slideshows do take a while, especially usually the way they send us the photos, they don't stay in chronological order. So that can be quite the task trying to put those. But I have to echo Dagmaer. Really the bulk of the time is trying to talk people through what's actually going to happen, why we're interested in them. People are so insecure, really. And it's always funny because I always say, it's just going to be a conversation. And then they get on and we talk for 2 hours. So they're like, oh, 2 hours went by. That was just, I had fun. And like, yeah. So 3 hours, whatever. Anyway, I'll let Achaxe go.
Same answer. A lot of times people are so unsure of what they have to contribute that I have to stalk their Facebook and pull the photos myself, which can be hit and miss, but that can take up to 3 hours per interview. And just pull it, because I have to go, someone's been on Laurel for 15 years. I've got to go all the way back to 2009 and mine all of their photos. And I don't know these people, so I'm kind of guessing what is important and what isn't, and that can sometimes be comical. But it's also really cool. I'm super emotional anyway, but when I go through and look at someone's whole life that they've put on Facebook, I just sit here and bawl because I miss the SCA so much, and I'm seeing all of these wonderful court moments. And, them holding kids, and I'm watching kids grow up going through all these pictures. And it's a little creepy because I'm totally stalking people, but I ask permission first. And, it's a lot to ask of an interviewee to spend those few hours themselves to come on and be interviewed by us. So it's a pleasure to do the work. So Cal, go ahead. I don't want to take up too much more time.
No, you guys are fine. The largest part of my time actually is spent in the background. I spend more time doing tech work and building out streams and editing photos and sort of building out like the events and things for other shows. My actual show running seems to be the easiest thing, which is really weird. Getting on the camera and doing the show is the easiest part of everything I do. I haven't had a problem getting guests. Everybody I've asked has been like, heck yes, other than Ulrich. Geez, Ulrich. Usually it's especially because again I approach them with a question or a topic. They're like, oh yeah, let's do that. That's a fun conversation. And obviously there's always the scheduling. There's always the when can we do this or that. So on a normal week, it's 3-4 hours on. I think I spend up to 3 hours on camera a week. I have like really good weeks of I'm on camera 3 and 4 times, and then I have the bad weeks where probably flip those where I'm not on camera, which is actually probably the preferable weeks. So I took last week off. I was like, you know what? I need a week to decompress. I was doing birthday stuff and was like, you know what? I found a couple of guest hosts. I asked Logan and Kenhill to take over one of my shows. I had Logan tech his own show, which he fortunately brilliantly could do. And I think that was really nice to actually have a week off for a change because it's been pretty steady. So yeah.
Thank you all so much.
Somebody's muted.
Yeah, Adriana, you're muted.
All right. The next question we're going to take in reverse order. So Cal's going to go first on this one. Yay! And the question is: have you been surprised by by your popularity and the popularity of your shows?
I'm popular. Who said that? I don't know.
It's just a question, Cal.
Yeah. So it's been really weird. So because I have such a sort of large variety, even on my personal channel, even just the 4 or 5 channels shows that I'm sort of actively involved with, I've noticed that the schedule and the topic really matters. So like my Wednesday night show, because it's game oriented, which is it's a niche crowd, and it's a Wednesday night, which is a sort of a weird night. I get a lower turnout, and that's I'm okay with that, right? But it's for me that's an important one because that's my educational show. That's my personal passion is gaming. So I care a little less that one's less popular. But then I bring in the great Duke Sean, and our show counts jump up to 50 and 60 at a time because it's friggin' Duke Sean. Like everyone's here to talk. I'm just along for the ride on that one. So I think that's for the popularity is concerned, it's a. We'll see if it lasts. We'll see if it holds out, and I'm just happy to be helping. It's really, I think the important thing for me is I'm happy to be in the background, and the more important work for me has been helping others be more popular, quote unquote, and do the things that they love to do.
So I guess we're going in total reverse. I'll go next. Totally surprised. We just took a leap of faith and decided to do the thing, and we get between 250 and 1,200 views per video, which is kind of astounding. And yeah, a little mind blown. So yeah, Rifkin.
So I was just going to say, I'm in total denial. We're not popular. Nobody watches our stuff. And actually, I don't really think about it. Neither Achaxe or I are very good at like and subscribe and all of that stuff. Like, that's just not who we are. We're both introverts, believe it or not. So we don't do any of that. Like, it's just, come over and hang with us if you want, But I'm not in complete denial. I was talking to Sean the other day on Zoom, and his daughter came on and fangirled over me, and I'm like, so not in complete denial.
Ziva is the best. She's my favorite person. Yes,
she's the best. Yeah.
So speaking of subscriptions, I'm going to jump in real quick, Grace, if you don't mind. I would like to ask anybody out there to go to Kál-Bárdr's Corner on YouTube and hit that subscription button. I am like 5 shy of 300 right now, so I'd like to hit 300, please. Let's go do that. I'd appreciate you.
I think I'm subscribed, or I would do it for you.
I am as well.
So my 12-year-old watches a lot of YouTube. And so he is always speaking that language of, oh, I liked or I subscribed or whatever. I got to be honest, I'm not really in that culture at all. And so the popularity of the show is a little bit of an abstraction to me. I also don't think that my show is as popular as the other shows on the Sisters Interview Network, speaking of imposter syndrome. But mostly that's because people are typically tuning in because they have somebody specific that they want to see. They're not just watching all of the content. And that's fine. We are keeping these for posterity. And I have to be, I'm going to take the tone down just a little bit here and talk about the fact that the legacy piece is really important. We've lost some really wonderful people in the SCA, not just this last year, but in, recent time period. I'm getting some feedback, just so you know. So it's important for us to make sure that these stories are preserved, and we have an aging population. In Ontario, we have a tradition of acknowledging people who have passed through the riderless horse ceremony, and the consorts, the royal consorts, are the people who are the stewards of that. And so to me, I saw this as an extension of that. So the popularity of it is less important in my case than making sure that we have this information, and that if people want it, they can access it later. That's really, really important. And in my specific case, because part of my interest is in addressing privilege, to make sure that people who are working, like, for example, in diversity, equity, and inclusion spaces, or who are directly addressing things like white fragility, or sort of some of the other issues that we've seen spill over into the SCA since BLM was in the public view. I think there's just a lot to be elevated from that. And I think, honestly, I think all of us are kind of dealing with those things, in our own ways. We're all thinking about, like, what is most important in the SCA that we want to amplify. And so, yeah. So the likes are less significant for me, but I will say it is really neat when a bunch of people sign in and start commenting. It is really cool that they care that much to spend their time that way.
So Eric, you were already famous as being the Knight of Kittens, but how has this impacted your popularity in the SCA world?
Okay, so, and Bart, Yazi, if you guys are listening, I still blame all of you for this. I have a fan page, and I periodically get email and presents from throughout the known world. I don't know why. I cannot explain it. But one of the things that has happened because of it is that people contact me all the time, and they want to tell me about their pets, children, older people. They want to tell me about the impact that their pets have had on their lives. Sometimes they want to tell me about when they lost a beloved pet, and they want to share that. And all of the levity aside, there are very few things in life that are as cool as having a small child walk up to you to show you a picture of their puppy or their kitten and tell you how much they love them. And I've had a small child walk up to me and hand me a pennon that they made in youth activities that had Knight of Kittens on it with a little cat face and a bunch of little hearts. And I mean, like, my gold chain and my white belt were a great honor and all of that. But to quote Henry V, I have that little pennant in my box where I keep my chains, and I wear it for a memorable honor.
Awesome. All right, the next question, because I got out of order a little bit, is what type of behind-the-scenes support do you have, or do you do it all yourself? And we touched on this a little bit earlier, but just to keep on track.
All right, I'm gonna jump on that grenade first. I am a one-man amazing wizard. No, that is a lie. Okay, so I think Jessica put a banner together for me, because if not, I'll miss people. So first of all, Runa, Lady Runefried is my amazing admin / Patreon wizard / social media guru. Like, I would not function without her. So that's the most important part of this sort of production crew. Their Majesties from the Outlands, they have been gracious enough to allow me to be part of the Outlands from afar. helping with their show. Her Highness Sarah from the Mists. We're doing Misty History with her now, her and Ritter Brian. So, and then Master Wistrick and Her Excellency Bruce for Fighting the World. And of course, His Excellency Logan from Ask the Knight, Dame Cunnahild, Baron Bercy, and Magistra Ula from Saga Saturdays. So that's the hosts from KK Productions, right? That's just people that are on camera. That's not counting. So like I do a lot of the technical work for a lot of those shows. Lord Nikon and Lord Fiken or Tierna Fiken do a lot of technical work as well. And the Honorable Lady Shyla and the Honorable Lady Edric do Peering at the Outlands as well. So there are a ton of people behind these shows that you never see. And there's so many more that have helped out in sort of one-offs and things like that. So I am super thankful to all those people and so many more that are helping out on all the other shows just to making what we do a lot easier. I'm just happy to be a part of that as much as I can.
Hi. So Rifkin and I pretty much do everything on our own. I spam lists. I don't have all the kingdoms, but I have, I don't know, maybe 9 that I do, and peerage lists. And yeah, we're on our own. And the shows that we run by ourselves, I'll often get a message from her in the middle of her show or at the beginning saying, help. And I'll do the same to her. So even when, she's not physically doing the show, she's kind of on call for me as support and vice versa. And then I'm the person behind the scenes for Dagmaer and Joel. So that's it. It's just the 4 of us.
I don't have much to add to that except that without the people that recommend people, we wouldn't be able to do this at all. So I really, really appreciate that. It makes our lives so much easier when we have willing victims. So I just want to say that everybody, every one of you that has put me in touch with people and some really, really cool people I would have never known to ask. I just so appreciate that, and just keep it coming. Thanks.
Yeah, my behind the scenes people are Achaxe and Rauokinn. So Achaxe really does. She is the person who gets us on the air when we're about to do the interview. I have the great luxury of sitting and being a pretty Duchess and letting her do that for me, which is really, really nice. Joel also helps to get guests, and we have a script that we sort of follow. So we share those duties as well, but otherwise we're just the ones doing it. Our network isn't quite as extensive as 15 active shows, so that helps. But otherwise it's just our families making sure that we have the space and time to do this, and that can't be overstated, the importance of that, to have people in our lives that allow us to sit and have this space and time and the mental space to also do this. So
did I mention the extrovert and project manager part of that? That's why there's 15 shows. I just can't get enough. But largely too, I think I have all those people, right? I do some parts of all of it, but it's definitely not a one-man show. So the fact that you guys are putting together what you're doing with just the 4 or 5 or sort of 6 of you is just as sort of epic. Also, if you need help, we can
be careful.
Corporation. That's it. Hold on. Genuine
That's
offer.
trying to increase his empire.
That's right. Growing the brand, man.
That's right. Eric, do you want to talk about Hound and Stag and the background workers on?
So I have 0 technical ability. And luckily for me, we have a large number of people. Adriana, who does wonderful work with our script. Her Ladyship Jessica Vosprey, who literally does everything, and I'm pretty convinced runs the entire world secretly, and that we're all just doing her bidding, whether we know it or not. Graf and Katarina, Graf and Katarina tries to keep us on time, and quite frankly, that might be the hardest job in the SCA, because like Cal, I'm a bit of an extrovert, and there's not a spotlight that I don't feel pretty comfortable in. And so as much as I might try to rein that back, it can get a little verbose. And we've got a lady, Margaret, who does a great job, like with our publicity and everything, and Lord Kikuchi, who helps us with technical support. So we're really, really blessed with a lot of people who put a lot of time and effort into making Ulrich and I look way better than we probably should. And so along those lines.
Oh, sorry. I just want to really quick jump in and say, though, that even though we're making it sound like there's a ton of people, anybody listening can start a show. You really can. If you want to use Facebook and Zoom or whatever, you do not have to have anything really special other than maybe up your camera and microphone a little bit than just what's on your laptop. But you really can run a show. You really can do this. It's not extraordinarily difficult, and you just have to start and then figure stuff out as you go along with a forgiving audience. So there.
That actually dovetails great into our next question, and that is, how has your show changed since its beginning? Because I know ours has gotten way more technically advanced, and we're way more people than just me and Ulrich being irreverent about tourneys. Cal, you want to kick us off?
We're still going backwards? Okay. So when I started looking back literally a year ago, it was Facebook Live in a single Facebook group, and that's where it began. And I was like, okay, there's a better way to do this. And realistically, my first thought was I was tired of having to reteach classes. And I was like, okay, we have YouTube for that. That's why YouTube exists. We can start putting things. So I was like, okay, how do I do that? Fortunately, I have friends that are actually in the movie business, and I reached out to one of them and said, hey, man, I'm wanting to do this show. What are your thoughts? And he's like, let me show you some magic. And he showed me StreamYard. That has been the turning point for me. StreamYard makes this significantly easier. Zoom is great for doing meetings. It is not built for doing streaming. And it works. And I mean, people are using it and they're getting by, but it definitely doesn't have a lot of the sort of the ease of use. And I make this look really pretty, but StreamYard's easy to use. And it's something that really made the difference for me from that first Facebook Live on my camera to what you see of the thing today. Now, I'm not saying there's not been some upgrades. There's, green screens and fancy ring lights. But admittedly, there's a fancy ring light hanging here that is painter's taped hanging from my ceiling right now because I couldn't get the damn arm. And as I talk, I start fading out. I couldn't get the arm attached to my desk this morning because of just sheer exhaustion. So it is way less pretty behind the scenes than it actually is on camera, I promise. But yeah, other than that, it's just been little upgrades. Like, I got a new microphone because my webcam mic wasn't as good. That's literally the biggest upgrade I've made.
For us, we literally use Zoom and Facebook, and then Sir Rifkin uploads everything to her YouTube channel afterwards, and then I make watch lists and put it on my YouTube channel afterwards. But most of our views are on the Facebook page. So we're super low tech. We really haven't changed. Personally, I got a new camera and a new mic because my apprentice works for Logitech. And he got me presents. And I went from just using my laptop screen to my husband had a bigger screen. So now I have a bigger screen. But, it really hasn't changed very much. We don't have an introductory thing. We don't have logos. We don't monetize at all. We just kind of do our thing. Rifkin?
Yeah, we've talked about logos and stuff, and I have invested in the Adobe Suite to figure it out. But like I said, I'm still working full time, and I just haven't taken the time to figure it out. Behind the scenes is where I've upgraded. I have a nice mic. I have a nice camera now. I have ring lights. And I have a makeup bench in my closet. I am not a makeup girl. I have learned how to use makeup because you don't want to be on YouTube forever and hate how you look. Very vain, but there you go. So that is my upgrades.
Which is funny to me because you're almost supernaturally beautiful, Rauokinn. So I will say that the biggest change for me is more in content. Definitely, I upgraded my game, but the work that I was doing professionally, I also needed to really be able to participate in meetings and not look asleep. So that was really more for that. I also run a trivia night for my friends, so I needed to be able to do that. But I'd say the content has changed the most. And somebody in the comments asked the question about what is an issue that wasn't as important to me when we started, but is important to me now. And I think this is the best time to address that because I don't know that this wasn't important to me before, but it definitely has become a lot more present in my mind. And that is how we in the SCA disenfranchise people, especially in the fighting community, especially people who are gender minorities, from power and from authority and privilege in this society. And that we do it in a lot of ways that are a lot more subtle than we realize. One of the things that Rauokinn brought up recently was that fight practices need to be in proximity to bathrooms because otherwise people who may not be comfortable changing out of the trunk of their car or who need to take off their kit to go to the bathroom and can't just pee in the bushes off to the side of fight practice are not attending. They're just not going, or they're getting out of armor early and people might be saying, hey, what are you doing? Why are you getting out of armor? It's like, well, I'm having my period, or I need a bathroom, and that these are the subtle ways that we disenfranchise people. And I think because Grace Under Pressure is about power and privilege, it is about people who have reigned by virtue of the connection that they have with somebody who is able to compete in those arenas of power. It is really important to me that we are addressing that and that we think about who's missing. What are we missing out on by those people being disenfranchised? What are we missing out on when we have go to an event and almost everybody there is white, or almost everybody there can afford to participate in the SCA at a level that, in Ontario, this is a really big issue because we're geographically big and we have several huge population centers. And so gas prices here are outrageous. Like, who are we missing when we disenfranchise people because of the cost of participation? And I want those people to be in the SCA. I want to see more diversity in how we, who has power and who is able to influence the way the SCA progresses into the future. And so that's been the biggest change for me, is that I don't pull any punches. I dive right into those issues. I don't worry about offending people. The right people will be offended by that, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm using my social capital as a Duchess and a Laurel and someone who has no F's to give anymore to, I'll take the hit. I'll take the social hit for that. That's fine with me, to make sure that those issues are being addressed. Sorry for the long-winded response, but that was really important to me, obviously. So.
Obviously, thank you. So the next question is, and we're going to skip around a little bit we're going off script, which we do a lot on this show, or skipping around on the script. What is the most rewarding and the most difficult part of running your shows?
The most difficult part has been actually guests that are less tech savvy. I won't name names, but a certain guest decided he was going to try to log in via his Kindle. Turns out Kindles don't stream real well. So not only was he late to the show, he was trying to log in with a Kindle. That was a fun trying to troubleshoot in the literal 5 minutes before the show started. That's been the most difficult part, is getting those guests who don't do this but have a lot to offer on camera, right? And my problem hasn't been convincing them. It's sort of figuring out the actual technical side across a country, when you're dealing with that, like I can't drive to California to help him troubleshoot his camera, and because we're so locked down, nobody can realistically. That's been a lot of fun. Yeah. Most rewarding has just been realistically the sort of getting to be backstage on the Outlands Royalty. I've been sitting backstage with some of these like Uber Dukes of the Outlands, getting to hear these stories from 30 years ago of the shit they did. I will take some of that. I will take to the grave because it should not be public. But things I would never have gotten that opportunity in my lifetime. I'm likely never going to go to the Outlands. At least I wouldn't have pre-pandemic. I will now, because I have people there now. I have friends in the West that I likely would have never met, other than doing these shows. And I think that's been the most rewarding thing, is just that network building that is the important part about the SCA, but is we keep that so insular because of just space and geography. This has opened that up.
100%. The connections that we've been able to make and the conversations that we've been able to have around privilege and around using your power for good, and what struggles have been and how you've overcome them. And I think one of the coolest things has been talking to people who literally started the SCA in their area, and they messed around and found out. They just took the leap, did the thing, and made it happen. And I think that one of the things we all need to really start thinking about, as I don't want to say we go back to the SCA, because I really think that we need to start over in a lot of ways, is how we steward the SCA. What is our stewardship like? How are we going to make it better? How are we going to affect positively the game that we play? And talking to these people who did that so many years ago has been really eye-opening and encouraging, that we can do it again. We can make it happen again. And the bad part, again, is tech issues. That's just part of the course, and you just have to kind of roll with it. Rifkin?
Right. I don't really want to repeat the answers. So I'll say a different difficult part is not wanting to try to give a voice or, to other things that I don't see happening that I would love to see happening. I just don't have the time for it. And I have these internal struggles about, oh God, I would love to see this, or I would love my kingdom to do this. And just accepting the fact that, not everybody has the same kind of bandwidth. And I am doing all I can, and that I just don't have the bandwidth to do more. That's been difficult in some ways, because, you're putting so much of yourself out there that sometimes you feel judgy that other people aren't carrying some of the weight. Not that it ever feels like work. It's not work, because the most rewarding part, meeting all the people, it makes it not work. And the people we've met, and it's just been incredible. I just cannot wait to travel and actually meet these people in person and sit down and chat. Yeah.
Same, Rifkin. And I think when we see critique of the shows that we're not covering a broad enough voice or audience, that's when it starts that maybe a little bit of resentment will seep through, where it's like, well, you can do your own show. Like, there's nobody stopping you. Go ahead, run your own show and amplify the voices you want to amplify. We're just doing what we like and what we know. So you can do that too. But I will say that one other thing that's really rewarding in doing these shows is understanding and building a repertoire of content for people for whom the SCA has not been accessible for a long time. And I'm thinking about people who are either not able to attend events anymore, or who I'm the mom of an autistic, and who, for neurodiversity reasons, this might end up being a really good way to get to know people, where in-person contact is actually very difficult for lots of reasons. And we're expanding the SCA to a huge array of people. That's so cool. And I hope that when we're in person again, there's some of this content that continues to be available. Maybe we continue to record some things that happen in person. You know, I think about people that just can't sit in a car for 6 hours to go to events anymore, or for whatever reason, it's a barrier to them. It's so cool to think that this could be a thing for them, that the pandemic may have actually expanded the SCA to people that we don't see. So I hope everyone will continue to think about that.
All right. Thank you so much for that. I think that anybody who's involved in one of these type of shows always wonders what they could have done better, or if they could have given a different viewpoint, or if there's just another way that they could improve the communications. But from everything that I can tell, all of you have been doing a fantastic job. You should be very proud of your efforts. And I actually went and looked to make sure that I could say that in the past few weeks when I knew this was coming, because I didn't want to say that and then go back. I mean, let's be clear. We've all said things like trying to be polite, and then it turns out, oh, that wasn't true at all, and I really must have looked like an idiot about that. But no.
That's okay. If you had been like, you guys are all doing a great job, except you, Dagmaer. You really should up your game. Believe me, like I said, I have social capital to burn. I could totally handle it. So,
so given that we've gotten the broad announcement that things possibly can open up after June the 1st, and I realize this is very kingdom specific, very area specific, and there are a whole lot of things that are going to come into play here that make that a really fluid scenario. And I also know you are all tired of hearing the words fluid scenario, but still, given that, how do you plan on handling your shows? Do you plan on continuing? Do you plan on lessening the number? Do you plan to play it by ear, or something I haven't named?
Your Grace, why don't we switch the order again? I'll let you go first.
Okay. That's a wonderful question. It kind of speaks to what I was just talking about, that this is a way to make the SCA accessible to people who can't find a pathway to full participation, especially in kingdoms where there's a lot happening across a broad swath of kingdom. We straddle 2 countries in Ontir. And so, and right now the border's pretty much closed. So it's especially acute here that we literally cannot travel across our kingdom. And that's a huge barrier for us. And so we're probably going to need to have a certain amount of online presence continue to happen to stay connected with people that we became really accustomed to seeing a lot. That's going to be super important. I think the other part, though, that I'm personally investing in, I'm starting another show called Ask Auntie Frithspottum, which is like an agony aunt advice thing. It's going to be funny. It's going to be lighthearted, but the real reason I'm doing it is so that I can have a more diverse array of voices on, and that when things come up that people want to talk about, we're able to talk about it. And I think that's why I'm starting it, is so that it has legs further on into the when we're back in person again. And that, we also in Ontir, we have a very transient population in Ontir. It's we have a lot of military. We have a lot of people who attend university or who are in the tech business. People move in and out of Ontir, and we miss them terribly. And so it's also a way for us to stay connected with people who are overseas or have moved to another part of the country, or the kingdom, even in some cases. So that's another thing that's really important to us.
So I have slowed down substantially. My dog has told me that 2 shows a week is enough. So she's actually snoring on the couch right there. So I think I'm going to stick with 2 shows a week. Achaxe and I have talked about continuing to do this. Wednesday nights work really well for us. And if we ever start eventing, well, we will start eventing. I'm going to be optimistic. Wednesdays will still be good because, Wednesday you're not getting ready yet or whatever. So if we start eventing, the other show might move. Right now it's on Sunday nights, which works really well for me too, because I get it over before my work week starts. We have changed and focused a little bit. We never intended not to interview peers, but our scope started with lions, which most of them are peers. But we are making a conscientious effort to reach out to non-peers. We did our first non-peer last Wednesday. It was a fantastic interview. We talked about some amazing, amazing DEI stuff. He's a really fantastic artist, and we look forward to more of that. And if anybody has anybody they want to hear about their journey that maybe hasn't been recognized with a peerage yet, please PM us and let us know who it is.
Same. I am shutting down the Branch of Laurels interview. I'm going to go through June. I said through May, but there are some last few people that I really wanted to get in. And that'll take me to a year of doing that show. But there's nothing to say that it won't come back. I also really like the idea of what you guys are doing with your How Shit Works. I think that's a really brilliant concept. And so I'm kind of noodling over how something like that would work in this kingdom. I'm pretty sure that we will not be doing anything before 12th night, which is January of next year. We might be able to have local practices, but I really don't think that we're going to be doing anything. So there's lots of time between now and then to come up with new ideas. So that's all I have.
I want to really quick jump on Achaxe on her answer, because I want to sorry, we're in Washington State, and I just want to say that this is kind of where the pandemic started, right? This is where the first cases of COVID were found, and we've been on lockdown and had the social distancing in place longer than any other place in the US. And it is wearing on us, but we are still probably going to be one of the last states to fully return. And it does wear on all of us. And I know people are really chomping at the bit to get back into the SCA, but we have an aging population in the SCA. And we're really going to just hold our ground and stay distanced in Ontario. We're going to have a very conservative approach to anything. And the reason is we don't want people to die. We've already lost too many people. And I really hope anyone who's listening is also taking that very seriously. As much as we would love to see you in person, there's a new COVID case at my kid's school. He's fully remote, but the kids that are in person, they just had another COVID case among the students. So we just really take that seriously here. And masking and social distancing and all of that, the SCA will still be there in a year or whenever we're able to fully do this again. So thanks for letting me get off my soapbox now.
So first of all, I think the June opening, first of all, the SCA never closed. The SCA lives. The SCA is us. We are still here. Let me just say that. I appreciate everything the bot has done in locking it down when they did and opening it up as little as they have. I also want to specifically thank Their Majesty Meridiers for being as diligent with our opening up here in Meridiers and as strict as it's going to be. So I don't expect us to be at events anytime soon, and I'm okay with that. I think for everything that's been said here. So as far as the shows, yeah, I'm going to keep on doing shows until I'm sick of doing it. The empire that is KK Productions may shrink slum. I know Their Majesty the Outlands, the minute they can be in events again, they're shutting it down. Bela hates being on camera and just will not do it as soon as he cannot. But it's So we'll lose some of that, but I know at least myself, Baron Logan, a couple others, we're happy to do this for the meantime. Once we're back doing events, I've already have a couple shows planned that'll be like a post-event news show that'll be just a event recaps. I think that's kind of things that'll be really important for people who couldn't show up to events. Here's what happened. Here's what you saw, right? And I'd love to see more stuff like that because I think, as mentioned, there's a whole bunch of people who can't get to events, and this ESCA has been super important for that. And we've been able to branch out to a significantly larger population, and I think it's helpful. I think it's going to grow the SCA into a much better place.
So, Eric, what about Hound and Stag Productions?
So, a lot of what we've talked about is what we believe is going to happen. Like, we're in a very fluid situation with rapidly changing information, and every kingdom will handle it differently. And even in those kingdoms, if there's given latitude, some groups are going to handle it differently. And so our plan is to continue on past June, almost on a contingency basis, I guess would be the exact word. If the vaccination efforts are very successful and we see what some of my professional colleagues believe will be a nosedive in cases beginning in the middle of late summer, that could change. If we don't see that, it may not. It's really very hard. It's like nailing a bologna sandwich to a tree. It's not going to stay there very long. It's all going to be messy, and no one's going to be happy with the result. We're just going to do the best we can to keep people involved until the time that maybe we don't need to do that. And even then, maybe we'll do one on occasion, just like, hey, you go into an event this week? No, I'm a little exhausted. Maybe we'll have a show about who knows what. But we're going to be continuing at least for the foreseeable future in some manner. Again, adjusting to all the things that will happen.
So thank you for that very southern example.
Yeah, that was the most southern thing I've heard you say today, Eric. Thank you for that. I appreciate you.
I have discovered, much to my chagrin, that I am indeed very southern. At one point, I believed I had no accent.
Well, you don't for people in Birmingham.
That's fair.
All right. So the next question up is, what do you wish you had known before you started your shows, and what advice would you give to people hoping to start their own shows?
I'm muted. I'm unmuted. Muting yourself and then unmuting yourself. That's a good thing. I think before I had started my show, I wish I had known that I could be more relaxed about it. The thing that I'm doing differently with the show I'm starting is that we're ramping up really slowly, and we're going to just do some trial interviews and trial shows first, and record them and not put them live, and just kind of step into it more carefully that way, mostly just so that the rhythm of it is something we can discover. And that, I think that'll make a difference. But the other thing too is now when I approach guests, I have more of a repertoire to be able to show them, but that's a chicken and egg thing. You can't really say, hey, we're starting a brand new show and here's what it's going to be like, So, and I've not done anything like this professionally. This isn't my gig normally. But I am really good at getting people to talk about themselves and to draw information out of people. And so I would say that anybody who wants to start a show, think about what your core strengths are in terms of what are you good at? And you can use that to create a show, but don't try to artificially do something that that doesn't feel right to you, there's other people who can do that. Do what feels right to you, you know, and start there, and then build on that experience and success.
So, what would I have known? I think, you know, Dagmaer sort of hit it on the head, is that the more you relax, the better the show is. And that's sort of my advice to people too, is that if you want to do something, there's nothing holding you back but you. That the tech can be super easy. And doing it isn't an enormous time commitment. You just got to decide that you're going to do it. Being an introvert, it's still hard for me to have those 5 or 10 minutes before the show where I'm just with somebody I don't know and trying to make small talk, because small talk is like the most evil thing ever. But once I get on camera and we're actually talking about substance, it's so easy. So the other only thing, like there's a question like, how do you deal with emergency meetings or Windows updates? I have learned through doing this show, and I would recommend to other people, I always restart my computer 3 hours before the show. That way all the updates happen. And I'm not still logged. Well, yeah, 3 hours, because that's when I got off work. And then I'm not still logged into work and stuff like that. And that is just a really good way for me to sort of cleanse my computer's palette. And since I learned that, we have had a lot less tech issues on my side.
I don't have a lot to add. So yeah, I don't have anything to add. They said everything.
So my advice is insert Shia LaBeouf meme here. Just do it. Yeah. And if you don't know how, reach out to somebody. Here are 4 examples of people who are doing this that have some idea of what we're doing, or I guess 6 in this case. Ping somebody, ask somebody that you know, and just pick a thing. Right. The advice I've given to hosts that I've worked with is owning the space. That's really the hardest thing. Is this is your space. This is your room. This is your show. Just take control and do it. Don't ask permission. Don't ask, is this okay? No, just do it. That's what I've seen, especially when people are doing interviews of like, you know, I've had to fuss at Baron Logan about it. I was like, they're just people, dude. Like, it's just, I don't care if it's Duke such and such. He puts his pants on one leg at a time, just like you do every morning. It's cool. And I think that's a really interesting thing, is getting to sit down with these people and having those backstage conversations beforehand has really helped, because you get that sort of real person, and it removes the bravado of, you know, the Dukes and the Grafs and the Counts that are like these heroic figures, and you're like, oh, okay, you're just a guy. Got it. Cool.
Well, and for us, those are some of the people that have taken the most talking into.
Right.
And like you said, we've had to tell them to own the space. This is your platform for these 2 hours. Talk about what is important to you. What legacy do you want to have recorded forever and ever? Talk about that.
I know, speaking, imposter syndrome is actually really common among some of those really accomplished people. But I'm married to a super Duke who has like huge SCA legacy. And, you know, I think there's just no barrier too high for me. I will dive in and just get in anybody's face. So if you ever need somebody to do that for you, I offer this to people all the time. I'm like, I am happy to go and talk to somebody for you. Just tell me. It's one of my superpowers, is to not be intimidated by SCA people. So just tell me. I will go talk to them. I will get them to do things for you.
That's actually what's been really weird for me, and I'll speak for Baron Logan a little too, as sort of the 2 non-peers that are running shows, right? Most of the rest of the shows in the world are being run by peers right now. So it's been really weird for the 2 of us on this side to be the low man on the totem pole, sort of having to punch up in a lot of these conversations. But it's also led to some really fun conversations for me to be a part of that I wouldn't necessarily ordinarily have that opportunity for. And I think it's helped because we bring a different perspective to a lot of the conversations. So yeah, it's been fun, and Logan and I've talked about it a couple of times. It's why he and I really jive a lot on what we're doing, just because we're doing a little differently than I think the rest of the peers in the world are.
Yeah.
I'm going to speak for myself and not Ulrich because, well, one, Ulrich does a really great job of it. And two, because I was like, who's going to want to tune in every week and hear me make an idiot of myself live? And so I was uncertain if I wanted to be a part of that, because I'm positive that in any one show, I will say at least 3 things that I will go, I'm not sure I should have said that.
Sometimes he said that before. He says, I'm not sure I should say this, but I'm going to say this anyway.
That's completely fair. But if you're thinking about starting your show, one thing I want to suggest to you is that you should give it a shot, even if you mess it up, because of 2 things. One, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So you can't be successful at a thing if you don't try it. And 2, you're going to learn a lot from the people you come in contact with. You're not always going to agree with what they say. You're not always going to agree with their outlook. You might even vehemently disagree with them on 1 or 2 points, but you're going to learn things from them. You're going to get a broader view of things, even if your opinion doesn't necessarily change. You're going to get a lot more, for lack of a better word, data to base what you think about things on, and then you can decide what's of value to you, what isn't of value to you, and what maybe you need to look at even further to decide if you can't decide from the initial conversations. And that's how we all get better. And I mean, and isn't that really what all of this is about, and all of what we're doing in the SCA, and maybe what we're all doing in life is just trying to get better at the things we care about and to be better in terms of the way we frame it. And you will be better by coming into contact with these people, particularly if they're people that you don't normally come into contact with. So you should definitely do it, even if it fails.
Great point.
So now we're going to get to the point where we give the shout outs. It's basically to anyone you want to. Other shows that you happen to think are great. People doing good things that you'd like to point out. And I'm going to start off with, since I'm asking the question, here in Meridians recently, we had a lot of people do some work with our Order of Precedence and add a lot of user interface abilities to it that you couldn't do before. And while a lot of people worked very hard on that, Her Ladyship Drusilla was perhaps the singular spearhead to that. And she's done a lot of good things with this kingdom over the years in terms of autocrating and things of that nature and holding offices. But this was a really big achievement that I think will make that easily accessible for people. And I just want to call everyone's attention to that and give her, congrats to that. That was a really good job.
I guess I could go next. I'm not, this is a new feature for me, but I will say I definitely want to give a shout out to Achaxe and Rauokinn. I think that what they're doing during the pandemic has been extraordinary. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's been extremely important. And it really has lifted people's experience, and it really does make a difference. Thank you so much for doing that. And the other thing that I want to give a shout out to are all of those people who stand up to their friends. It sort of speaks, Eric, to what you were saying about people when you disagree with somebody. What is the quality of that interaction? It's also when we stand up to people that we care about and we say that we think they're wrong, or we think that what they're doing could be better. It's easy to stand up to people you don't like. It's a lot harder to stand up to your friends. And I see, especially in this last year, I've seen so many people doing that. I don't even know how to list them all. But for those of you who are doing that, we see you, especially for when you stick up for people who don't have a voice. We see you. So we see that you're doing that, and we see it every time. So please don't stop doing that. It's really, really important.
Okay. I kind of have a lot of shout outs, I guess. I want to give some shout outs to the Crown and the populace of Lock, Artemisia, Atenvelt, and the Outlands. You guys and your royalty are letting some of us live vicariously in the STA, and you have really put in the work to keep the STA alive, and by doing online courts and contests and lots of events. And I just super appreciate all of you, what you guys have done. I also want to tell everyone, take this time to write some award recommendations. There's a lot of cool art going on online. A lot of people, you know, that you're hearing about their lives and what they do and the service they do, and the art. Write award recs for those people. I mean, use this time to do that. It's super easy. Our Kingdom website has an award form, so you just fill it out. It's super easy. I want to give a shout out to the Coaches Corner. That's been a really amazing space to talk about fighting. I'm a total fighting junkie, so I've been loving that. I've been loving getting insight from all of those fabulous fighters and trainers. And then I also wanted to give a shout out to all of the people that are invested in making the fighting culture more nurturing for gender minorities. I know you're out there. I know you want to do it. And we want to give you the tools to do it. So we see you and we appreciate you.
And I would like to enthusiastically second what both of them have said, and then also give a shout out to all of our baronial heads in the Kingdom of Ontir. They have been doing an incredible amount of work to keep our communities going and to build communities. The Barony of Lionsgate has been running an incredible series of interviews and discussions around DEI topics. The Baron of Terra Primaria has been doing some great classes. And then my local baronies, Three Mountains, Stromgarden, and Dragon's Mist, have all been doing a lot of socials and a lot of work to keep things going. And I appreciate it more than I can say.
Well, I guess I can't leave out their Majesty's Meridiers from the list of crowns that are being amazing. Their fireside chats have been awesome. Our courts have been just stellar here in Meridiers. And I'm so happy we're doing that. But to add to that list, I listed all the tech crew and the hosts earlier, and those people are just amazing in what they're doing, both on camera and behind the scenes. So go hit all those pages: Fighting the World, Outlands Royalty, Peering at the Outlands, Saga Saturdays, Ask the Knights Live, Toka's Tech Tips, Misty History. Go find these pages, go like them, go give them comments and likes. It definitely helps. It's one of those things like. We say we don't care about the likes, but like when you see that little ding, you'd be like, "Oh, cool! I did a thing! Yay!" It really helps. So yeah, thank you to all the folks who are out there to create content, and of course to my fellow guests here. The sisters interview stuff has just been amazing. Between you guys and of course between two peers, Tulia and Helga. I love me some Helga and Tulia. They have been inspirational. I think in some of the stuff they've done. I'm happy they're on a break right now. They definitely needed it. So cheers to them and just all of my fellow content creators. I think we're keeping the dream alive.
So, all right. Last chance. Anything else you guys want to cover before we go?
I just wanted to thank both of you and your crew for having us on and giving us this opportunity to talk some more. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that. And I also want to say, if we didn't have to have our faces online every week, we would be so cool with that. So, we support everybody else's content. And if you guys want to do some content, just do it. And if you decide you don't like it, stop. So just take the leap of faith.
I will third that. Yes. Thank you, Eric and Adriana. And thanks, Ulrich, even though you were busier to hang out with us today. I know he's out there watching, so I give him crap for that. Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here.
Yes,
We'd like to thank our guests, Duchess Dagmaer, Sir Rauokinn, Mistress Achaxe, and Lord Kál-Bárðr. I think I did okay. For showing up today. I know it's early where you guys are from, and I really appreciate that you getting up and getting ready and being here, because I know how I am in the morning, and that wouldn't be my first thing I'd like to do is roll out of bed and get all round up to be on a show. So thank you so much. I'd also like to thank our support crew, Her Ladyship Jessica Vosper, who, like I said before, I'm pretty sure runs the world. So if you have a complaint about the situation of the world, you should find Her Ladyship and make sure she understands it so she can take care of it. I'd like to thank Mistress Adriana, both for co-hosting today and for your wonderful scripts. I'm sorry that I go off of them all the time. I really have problems like that. I can't help it.
It's okay, Eric, I understand.
I'd like to thank Her Excellency Grafin Katarina. She's amazing, and she's always trying to keep me on time, and I'm always going long, even like I'm doing right now. I'm so sorry. And finally, I'd like to say thank you to Lord Kikuchi for technical support. And last but certainly not least, those of you in our audience who, for whatever reason, compels you show up time and time again to hear Ulrich and I give our opinions, which aren't worth much, and the opinions of our guests, which are worth a lot more. But thank you for being there. We hope everyone is doing well. We hope you're all staying safe and that all of you are healthy, and we look forward to seeing you again when we can. Thank you very much, everybody, and we hope you have a great day. Bye, everyone.
And if I die in battle, tomorrow I will be home, though it's 70 days march to there from Rome. But a soul travels swiftly on the night wind, and if I die in battle, I'll be home again.